Hi guys, so I'm going to do a quick video here on an issue I'm having with my Skidoo and how I'm going to go about fixing it. So first off, it is a 2000 Skidoo Tundra. Just picked it up, and the previous owner said that he was having issues with his headlight not working, and he switched out the bulb and it blew the new bulb. And so then he said that he installed a small LED light which you see right here that he mounted. He said it was working fine. So when I bought it and took it out for the first time, after about 30 minutes of riding, it blew, or the LED light stopped working. It just shut off. It flickered a couple times and then shut off. So obviously he didn't fix it. So I was doing a little, I had to look at the wiring because he had spliced into stuff and people had been into the wiring. So I looked it all over and I found there was a connector by the voltage regulator that was loose. There was some wires loose in it, and if I grabbed it and pushed everything in snug, the light would come back on. So I narrowed down the issue to that plug, or what I thought was the issue. So I took it out for a ride after pushing all the plug together and making sure the wires were all pushed in and the light was working. And same thing, about 30 minutes went by and all of a sudden the light shut off. So I went to look at this plug again, and this is what I found. The plug had melted. So there is obviously a short. I've taken these two wires out of the plug, but there was obviously a short in this plug, and it heated up. Some wires touched together, heated up, and melted the plug completely. So it was an issue with the regulator plug. If you find that you're having similar symptoms with the headlight of Skidoo Tundra, that it's either shutting off by itself or it doesn't work and you put new bulbs in, check out this plug. Before it melted, when I first started, figured out that this plug was loose, it looked 100% fine. It looked like it was clipped together, and the only way I was able to get the light to turn on was I grabbed both sides of this plug and pushed them together, pushed all the wires in. As soon as I did that, the light came back on. So I knew that there was just a loose wire in there. But what I didn't know was that when I pushed everything back together, since there was a loose wire, it must have pushed one of these wires up against another and caused the short, which in turn melted the plug. So now I've done a little research online, and it is quite common for these Tundras to have this issue. This plug over time gets hot from the engine, and it makes these tabs not seat in there quite tight. They'll move around as you're riding, and eventually one of them will touch another one and it'll cause a short, and then this will happen. So this is a common problem as to why the Tundra's headlights stop working. This is the voltage regulator. So if you're blowing your bulbs, it could be because this voltage regulator is sending too many volts to the bulb. This is supposed to send, clip everything down to 15 volts. Anything above that, when you're like revving your Skidoo, it can send up to 30 volts. This regulator clips it down to 15 and sends the rest to the ground. So if you're blowing bulbs, it could be because this stops working and it's sending too many volts to your bulbs and just keeps blowing them. So it could be this issue, but first thing you should check is this plug. Make sure pull everything apart, make sure these posts, everything's clipping on there nice and tight, and these posts don't move around and not able to touch another one, or else you'll end up with this. So now, how am I planning on fixing it? I'm sure the plugs are pretty expensive if I were to get them from buy a brand new plug, and you have to get the male and the female since both mine are melted. But I did some research online, and people said that they switched their plug out to just a 4-pin trailer plug. You got the vehicle end of the plug and the trailer end of the plug, and then you just wire it in and use that as your new plug. So that's what I plan on doing. I picked up a 4-pin plug. It was about 15 bucks, and then I'm just going to use some butt splices and splice the wires together, and I'll have a little excess wire so I can zap strap the plug away from any engine heat, so it should be able to last longer than this original plug. So if you see here, there's a yellow wire from the voltage regulator, and then a yellow and black wire. It's a yellow with a black stripe. So the yellow and the black stripe is your ground wire. The wire that comes from your harness of your Skidoo, it's got a yellow and black, it's got a yellow, and it's got a black. So it's a 3-wire. So how it was originally Sorry, there's been some wolves hanging around, so I gotta keep an eye on the dogs. Alright, so back to this. This is 3 wires from the Skidoo harness and 2 wires from the voltage regulator. How this was wired was this black ground wire was jumpered over to the yellow and black on the voltage regulator side of the plug. So that's how I'm gonna, I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be. I thought originally that this black wire should be ran to a ground wherever all the wires are grounded to, somewhere on the chassis, but it looks as though this was just ran over to this peg that had the yellow and black wire and then this black ground wire. So that's how I'll rewire it and see what happens. Okay, I got the new plug wired up. I'll show you what it looks like. I already started it, and the light is working and the tail light's working, so it looks like it worked. Now it's just gonna be whether or not it can handle the excess volts when I'm out riding and I have it full throttle and the RPMs up, because then I think that's when it'll send 30 volts, and if the voltage regulator is working, it should clip it down to 15. So here is what I did. I wired this. You can see the trailer plug down there. I got a 18-inch loop, which was basically, it was 18 inches connected, and these plugs were connected to each other with 18 inches of wire. So I cut it in half, so each plug had 9 inches of wire. And then I used some butt splice. I have it all taped up here with electrical tape so you can't see, but I butt spliced the trailer plug wires. This green wire isn't being used, it's just a dead wire, so there's nothing going to this post on the plug. The green is nothing. So the yellow wire, which you see down here, that is tied into the yellow from my Skidoo harness and the yellow from my voltage regulator. So that stayed the same. The yellow wire is the same. Then the brown wire that's next to the yellow, you can see green, yellow, brown, white. So the brown wire is my yellow and black. So if you see this wire here, it's yellow with a black stripe. And then the one wire from the voltage regulator is a yellow with a black stripe. So that's what I connected my brown wire to on both sides of this plug. So the brown is tied into yellow and black. And then the last wire is the white wire, which is the ground for the trailer plug. So I wired the black wire from my Skidoo harness. This black wire here goes to the white wire. And then on this side, if you see here, the voltage regulator side of the plug, since there is only 2 wires coming off the voltage regulator, there wasn't a black, I used a wire tap, this blue thing right here. It connected my white wire to my brown wire, which is the yellow and black. So that connects the ground to the yellow and black ground wire. So it's fairly straightforward. You just have to match up the colors, and if your some voltage regulators, I believe, have a ground. So then you would connect this black wire that's from the wiring harness. That would connect to the ground on your voltage regulator. But my regulator only has a yellow and black. So that's why my ground wire, which is this white, is jumpered over to the yellow and black wire, which is now brown on this trailer plug. So I'll just give it a start up so I can show you that it is working as it should. So the tail light is working. That plug controls the power for your tail light and your headlight. So even if your tail light is acting funny, check that plug that's at the voltage regulator and make sure nothing's loose, there's no loose wires, or that the plug itself hasn't started to melt, because that'll affect your tail light and your headlight. So both lights are working. So that's it. If you are having any issues with your Skidoo Tundras, or I'm sure it's the same for many different sleds, they all have voltage regulators, at least all the older ones do for sure. So make sure you check the plug that you'll find where you're off your voltage regulator. So I know with the Tundra, this is a very common issue where the plug heats up and the connections loosen inside. And then as soon as you'll notice, it'll flicker on and off at first, and then if it loosens enough where 2 wires touch each other, then you'll have a short and you'll see that your plug melts like mine did. So just keep an eye. I'm gonna go and take it for a ride and get it all warmed up and give it some gas, get some full throttle, and just see what happens. I want to make sure nothing heats up on this plug and that everything is going to be all right, because you won't notice right away if it's overheating, but if the voltage regulator is bad, once you start giving it full throttle, that's when it'll send too much power. But I'm hoping that it was just this plug and this fixed it. And if you're going to switch it out for a trailer plug like this, use the extra length of the wire and zap strap it away from any heat, because it'll get hot. The closer to the motor it is, the hotter the plug will get. So I just zap strapped it back a ways so it shouldn't get any heat at all. So that was 15 bucks for that plug, and then just a couple butt splices. So I'm going to go start this up again and take it out for a rip and see what happens.